All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. The Detroit Lions with a very impressive victory over the Minnesota Vikings. At the time, 10-2, now 10-3. Detroit back-to-back wins, great win at home, all around impressive football game, 34-23. I mean, 6-7. I'm not saying they're gonna make the playoffs. All I'm saying is I really genuinely still think the Detroit Lions are gonna win out and finish 10-7. We'll see what happens, but all around, this was a phenomenal game. Ben Johnson sandbagging, third down. What a play call, going to the right tackle. That takes balls. The fake punts. I don't know what Lions fans think about this, but when the Lions were doing that fake punt, I had this weird gut feeling that it was I don't know. I felt like they were scheming something up, and of course they do. CJ Moore runs for 42 yards. This was a very impressive football game. Very impressive football game. We talk about this every single week, whether it's this year or next year. Like, if it's not this year, it's going to be next year. And this Lions team, man, top to bottom, their defense has gotten so much better from the start of the season, offensively speaking. What was this? Their fifth straight game, putting up 30+. I mean, they are just such an impressive team on both sides of the ball. They're missing like maybe a handful of players from being legitimate contenders in this league. I know it sounds crazy, but Jared Goff today, 27-39, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns. Phenomenal job. They did great in the red zone once again. They forced a turnover. Kirby Joseph picking that ball up there late in the first half. I mean, it's so cool to see it kind of all come together. And I don't know, man. There's just something. This team plays with some type of swagger to them, this chip on their shoulder. And after starting the season the way they did, that Packers victory really kind of changed the momentum. It changed the tide for this entire season. Before we get any further in this video, if you guys enjoy, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I post a couple of Lions videos every single week. You guys show mad support on all of my Lions content, so I appreciate you so much. Let's try and get to 250 likes on today's video, but most importantly, I want to hear your thoughts on this game down below. So if we rewind all the way back to the start of the season, or around the start of the season, the Detroit Lions had it in the palm of their hands, taking down Minnesota on the road. Now it's much different teams from both sides, but Dan Campbell, he said it earlier this week, like he was like, that loss is going to haunt me for the rest of my life. Obviously being a little over dramatic, but it's true. I mean, it kind of rings home for a lot of the Lions games at the start of the season where they just had it in the palm of their hands and maybe a couple of mistakes, whether it was, just getting the job done, play calling, whatever it was. They could be so much better than 6-7. Defensively, they start off a little shaky, but I mean, you gave up 23 to the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, they held Dalvin Cook to 1.5 yards per carry. They held him to 1.5 yards per carry. Dalvin Cook on the day, 15 carries for 23 yards. Now, Kirk Cousins did throw 30 for 40 with 405 yards and 2 touchdowns. To be quite honest with you, though, I never really felt that. There were definitely some big-time plays to Justin Jefferson. I mean, I think he broke the Vikings' career game reception yard today. He had 10 receptions for 213 yards, but Kirk somehow threw for 405 yards. When I saw that at the end of the game, I was kind of blown away. I never really felt that. But the Lions, they did give up some big plays defensively speaking, but especially once they got into the red zone, they held their ground. I mean, the defense made plays when they had to make plays, and just in general, they gave up 23 points. I mean, this was a 10-2 football team. I know Minnesota has a bunch of flaws, but it's mainly on the defensive side. Minnesota's holes are mainly defensively speaking. So offensively, you're holding them to 23 points. That's definitely something to be very happy about, very proud of. So this was just probably the second back-to-back. I mean, it came in back-to-back weeks. Like last week, not only did Detroit break records with that win over Jacksonville, but I guess the nitpick could have been, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars, which, by the way, on the road, they just beat the Tennessee Titans. But we kind of had never really seen, up until last week, 4 straight good quarters. Whether it was 3 good quarters in a game, a hiccup in one quarter, or one good half, hiccups in another half. This game, Detroit, 34 points. I think all 4 quarters were great football. Great football against a championship caliber team. You can have your issues, you can have your concerns with Minnesota. I think a lot of people will start to express those and raise those concerns on the Minnesota Vikings' legitimate Super Bowl championship odds after this game, after this loss. But I don't think Detroit still is going to get the credit they deserve. Hopefully they do, because they're right there in the playoffs, man. They're like literally right there. They had it in the palm of their hands again against Buffalo over on Thanksgiving, but we're just seeing good football for entire games now, back-to-back weeks. What's kind of crazy today was that the run game never really got going. Jamal Williams, 16 carries for 37 yards. That's just 2.3 yards per rush. DeAndre Swift, a little bit better, 6 carries for 21 yards, 3.5 yards. Justin Jackson, 4 carries, 19 yards, and a touchdown. That was cool. But CJ Moore, for the most part, because of that fake punt, the statistics are a little bit overinflated. At the end of the day, Detroit ran it for 134 yards, but 42 of those were CJ Moore. It wasn't the best day running the football for Detroit, but also really wasn't the worst day running for them. I mean, they did what they had to do, especially late in the game, but that was something I was a little surprised at, because Minnesota's defense, as far as rushing and just in general, isn't the best. But, I mean, Detroit is just trending. They're, honestly, the most enticing team. As far as, quote-unquote rebuild teams go, they're definitely the best one. I mean, they're definitely the one with the best future. Looking at the receiving today, DJ Chark, I loved the deep throws Jared Goff was making. Jared Goff in the last 5 games, specifically 5-6 games even, he's done a phenomenal job. I mean, he is really he's making very little to no mistakes on a game-to-game basis. So Jared Goff has done a phenomenal job, and I can't wait to see what happens with him next year, because, Jameson Williams, we saw Jameson Williams catch his first ever NFL reception today, and it was a touchdown for 41 yards. We saw DJ Chark go for 48 and a touchdown. The deep ball was working. I know they were missing Harrison Smith, but still, the deep ball was working for him. Jared Goff, I'm sold, man. I'm absolutely sold. And you can tell, he's a great person. You can tell these guys love him. You can tell the chemistry has just been nothing but building up and up and up and up every single week. This team's a force, man, and they're a legitimate threat, and it's going to happen next year. I guarantee you it's going to happen next year. I think Lions fans would fully agree with that. Once they fill in a couple things on the defense, maybe add a couple more threats, but at the end of the day, we'll see what DJ Chark, if he comes back next year, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the most intriguing young receivers in the National Football League. Josh Reynolds, just a very underrated, reliable receiver. And now Jameson Williams. We heard it from Dan Campbell himself. They're going to ease him into it. He only played 8 snaps last week against Jacksonville. I don't know his snap count. We'll have to check it later today. But I don't know his snap count. If you do know it, let me know down below. But it's just, it's going to be incremental, right? It's going to be incremental. So this Lions team, man, as a cheesehead, actually wearing a Bears hat. It's my favorite hat. As a cheesehead, this Lions team is absolutely terrifying. I mean, they are absolutely terrifying, and I think we have them in the last game of the season. What's Detroit got? The Jets, the Panthers, Bears, and Packers? They're going to win all 4. At worst, they're going to go 3-1. I'm not even concerned about playoffs. We'll talk about that later on in the week once we have the ending to – the Giants just got decimated. The Giants suck. Once we have the ending to Seattle, we'll talk about this a little later on in the week. But just a phenomenal win for Detroit to get to 6-7 on the season. So let me know what you guys are thinking about this Lions team. Hit that like button, hit that sub button as always, and I'll catch you guys later.